Hey everybody, and welcome back to another art journaling video. Today I'm playing with distress inks, oxides and stencils. And I'm using our new stencils, and this one is the ornament #1 stencil. And I'm using fossilized ember to start with. After I've inked up the stencil, I'm spritzing it with water. I do this at the side a little bit because I don't want to spritz all over my journal. And unfortunately, my spray bottle does not work really good anymore, and it sprays in not in the area that I wanted it. So some areas of my stencil might be not wet enough. So I definitely have to say that I clean that spray bottle a bit so it works better again. I do this a few times with the same color, and I use a paper towel to soak up the excess that comes up from the stencil. And I just do this randomly all over the double spread. I try not to fill everything, so I have some areas left for another pattern, and I also don't want to have everything covered fully because that usually makes it look more boring when you cover up everything. You need some white spots from the paper showing up in between. Unfortunately, also the left page of the journal is quite bulky, and that's a bit hard then to get that pattern from the stencil onto the paper. But I do not really mind that. I will just layer up the images or the stenciling and the colors until I'm happy with the result. I think I try to clean the spray bottle, the opening of the spray bottle a bit, so it works a bit better. Yeah, but that does not help at all. I'm going to use some colors today that are a little bit spring inspired. So we have a yellow, I plan to use an orange, and a moss green. And I also plan to use one of the ephemera pieces that I made in one of my recent videos. I used it also in my last art journaling video. And this is also something that inspired me to pick these colors, because on that focal point that I wanted to use, I have exactly these colors. I'm using the spiced marmalade here. Just a darker color. Here I grabbed the wrong ink pad. I grabbed that fossilized ember again, and usually I would just use it on a piece of scrap paper and not waste the ink. But as I was recording a video, I thought I would just wipe the stencil clean and add another layer again with the spiced marmalade. Well, at that moment, I'm not 100% sure if it is spiced marmalade or carved pumpkin. I hopefully can see that on screen when my screen is a bit bigger. But I will give you the names of the inks I'm using in the video description. And there you will also find all the products I've been using on this spread. And I will give you a link to our blog where I have some photos and close-ups of the finished page. Here I'm just using a brush and some of the ink from the stencil to add it to my page. And here I especially cover up areas that are not perfect, that maybe are too empty. I just try to fix things that I don't like very much. With the distress inks, here I'm spritzing just some bigger droplets on my page to give some more interesting texture, and with the distress inks you have to dry the layers in between so you don't get a muddy background, and also to keep the patterns when you layer up another color. So I dry this now, and then I'm coming back with another color. And in my next step, I'm using the forest moss, and I think that's in the oxide version. And I'm using the oxide version because it's more opaque than the usual inks, and that's better if you have a layer over the top. And I also spritz that with water. And that stencil is our dotted stencil. I really love dot patterns, and our ink dot stencil is already sold out, so I decided to make another stencil with a dot pattern because I love to use it. I'm using the forest moss again on the left side of my page, and here I also use my brush and pick up the ink from the stencil and move it around on my spread. I pressed the forest moss to my glass plate and mixed it a little bit with water, and here I'm making some splatters with it all over my page. I grabbed my collage bit and some papers in similar colors that I wanted to use on this spread, and here I just have a look if I need something else on the background. And I have that pink paper because the butterfly on my ephemera piece is pink, but there is nothing pink on the page, and I decided to pick that worn lipstick in the oxide version and add another stencil pattern to my background, so I have some of the pink on the background. I do not need much, I just want to have a little bit of it so everything stays cohesive once I'm adding the collage piece on top. And as I said in the beginning, the distress oxide are more opaque, so they layer up on another color, and especially once you dry them, or once they are dry, they build this oxide effect with the white pigments, and that gives you even more layering. So it will show up even more once it's dry. And I'm adding a little bit to the right and also to the left side. I dried that background with my heat tool, and here I am laying just down some pieces of the papers I had picked out, just to see where I want to put things and how I want to layer them up on each other. It does not mean that this is written in stone. I always will maybe change up stuff once I really glue things down. I just want to have an idea of what I will need. As everything is quite similar on the background, and I have a black outlined butterfly and that black circle on my collage element, I decided to bring in some black to the background as well. I also feel that the whole background is quite similar in tonal value, and I definitely need to add something to make that a bit bigger. I'm stamping one of the patterned images, the crosses from the new Pencil Max 8 stamp set, and I just experiment a little bit and stamp it to under the focal image and to the left side, which I want to have as kind of a contrast against the right. So I have something on the right which is the focal image and something else on the left page that catches the viewer's eyes. So not only a background, something to focus on. And I just stamp these in black to bring in more tonal value and also to bring in that black from the focal image. To create also a different pattern, I'm using the numbers from the Mix It Up 7 stamp sets to just bring in some other textures to the page. I really like numbers or written text as a style element, and I just put that randomly to my spread, and the ink I'm using is Diversified Clear. I love this ink because it gives you the best stamp impressions, but it does not work really good over acrylics. So I'm using it because I just have a watercolor paper here and a inky background, no acrylics, and that works quite nice. It needs always a little bit time to dry. The journal I'm working in is a watercolor journal from Kunst und Papier. It has very thin paper and the paper quality is very bad, I would say. I don't really like it for watercolor painting in a traditional way, but for mixed media, I find it quite nice. And as I mentioned previously, I wanted to make the tonal value range a bit bigger. So I'm going in with a really dark color here. I'm using the Black Soot Distress ink. I pressed it to my glass plate and now I'm picking it up with a bit of fodder and a brush. And I just move it around my spread to bring in some darker areas, and that also makes the focal image pop up from the background. And as I said, that brings in that bigger tonal value range, which makes a painting more interesting. I'm now going to dry that again with my heat tool, and I'm also going to make some black splatters with that leftover ink I had. Once the page is dry, I'm gluing down the papers, and I use just a simple glue stick for that. And the papers I'm having here are jelly prints, mainly jelly prints, and some are on rice paper like the green one and the light pink. And I also have that old book paper which is colored with watercolors, and the yellow one is just a normal jelly print. I glued the papers down off camera because it's just gluing down, and I did put them a little bit here and there until I decided how I finally will go, and I'm adhering my focal image with some wet craft glue. Now I'm going to put down the papers to my left page, and I also use that glue stick to put them down. Here I'm going to stamp a sentiment, and I'm using a word from the Mix It Up 7 stamp set and letters from our A to Z stamp set, and I'm using that yellow jelly print. I'm stamping everything to that, and then I cut that out and adhere it to my page. I'm spelling the word free soul because I thought that would match the butterfly on the right. And I just stamp all the letters at the same time. Just the E I have to stamp again. And then I'm going to cut them out. I really like these letters to create bigger words on a page, especially in this way, to just stamp them and then cut them into rectangles or squares and adhere them to a project. And here I'm adhering the letters also with the glue stick to, as I had this dark orange on the focal image, I wanted to bring in some of that dark orange to the left side, and I tried it here with a Posca paint pen. Unfortunately, the rice paper is quite, it's soaking up the marker very much, and you almost cannot see it once the dots are dry. But what I'm going to do is I put down a first layer, let that dry, and then go over them again. That will make them pop a little bit more, but I have to keep in mind that over rice paper and acrylic marker does not work very well. So it's just not the best way to make marks. Maybe I should have used a Neocolor crayon, which works much better because it's not wet and it cannot soak into the paper. And that's all I'm doing to the page. I added these dots again, and here is the finished spread. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope we will see us next time. I wish you a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.